In many everyday situations, people rely on instructions that were never designed to be consistent across time or context. A plan is written once, shared widely, then copied, modified, simplified, or translated. Over time, small differences begin to appear. Measurements change slightly. Steps are reordered. Materials are substituted without explanation. At first, these differences seem minor, but when someone tries to follow those instructions in a real setting, the gaps become visible. Most instruction systems depend on an external chain that is easy to overlook. A plan often assumes access to specific tools, stable supply of materials, and a shared understanding of how components fit together. It may also rely on external clarification, such as online forums, updated manuals, or expert advice. When everything is available, the system works. A person follows the steps, fills in the missing details through experience or external help, and completes the build. But when that chain is interrupted, the situation changes. A material might not be available in the local area. A measurement might be unclear or conflicting between two versions of the same plan. Instructions may skip a step that the original author assumed was obvious. Without a reliable reference, the person is left to interpret, adjust, or guess. This introduces variability. The same plan can produce different results depending on who follows it and what resources they have. To reduce this kind of dependency, different categories of solutions have developed over time. Some people rely on standardized kits. These are pre-assembled or partially assembled systems, where all components are designed to fit together in a fixed way. The advantage is consistency. The limitation is flexibility. If a part breaks or needs replacement, it may be difficult to adapt without access to the original supplier. Others use modular systems. These break a larger structure into smaller, interchangeable parts. Each module can be built or replaced independently. This reduces the impact of a single failure, but it still depends on compatibility between modules. If instructions for one module are inconsistent, the entire system can be affected. Another approach is to rely on community-driven instructions. These evolve over time, with users contributing improvements or corrections. While this can increase adaptability, it also introduces variation. Different versions may coexist, and it becomes unclear which one is the most reliable. There's also a category focused on structured plan libraries. This approach does not eliminate variation entirely, but it organizes instructions in a way that reduces ambiguity. Instead of a single document that changes over time, the system uses a collection of plans that follow a consistent format. Each plan is built around the same structure, with clear sections for materials, layout, assembly, and configuration. Within this category, one specific format stands out because of how it handles inconsistency. Rather than assuming that instructions will always be followed in ideal conditions, it accounts for variation from the start. It treats each plan as a self-contained unit, but also as part of a larger system of reference. In practice, this means that each plan begins with a defined list of materials, not just names, but dimensions, quantities, and possible alternatives. If a specific component is unavailable, the plan may include acceptable substitutions and how they affect the overall structure. This reduces the need for external clarification. The assembly layout is presented in a consistent way across all plans. Instead of relying on descriptive text alone, it often includes spatial organization. Components are positioned relative to each other with clear relationships. This makes it easier to understand how the system fits together, even if the user has never built something similar before. Wiring or power setup, when relevant, follows the same principle. Connections are shown in a repeatable format. Inputs, outputs, and flow are clearly defined. This reduces the risk of misinterpretation, especially when multiple versions of instructions exist elsewhere. Component arrangement is another key part. Instead of assuming that placement is intuitive, the plan defines where each part goes and why. This helps maintain consistency between builds, even when different people are involved. What makes this format structurally different is not complexity, but predictability. Each plan behaves like a template that can be applied across different projects. Once a person understands the structure, they can approach new plans with the same expectations. This reduces the learning curve and limits the impact of inconsistent instructions from other sources. At a household scale, this approach becomes practical because it does not depend on specialized infrastructure. Most plans can be executed using common tools and materials. The focus is on repeatability rather than optimization. A system built this way may not be the most efficient in every case, but it is more likely to be completed successfully under varying conditions. In some cases, this format exists as a finished device. A person can acquire it and use it without needing to understand the underlying structure. In other cases, it exists as a built-from-plan system. Here, the user follows the structured guide to assemble the system themselves. The guide typically includes all the elements mentioned earlier, presented in a consistent and predictable format. This does not replace other systems. Standardized kits, modular designs, and community-driven instructions all have their place. A structured plan library works alongside them. It acts as an additional layer that reduces dependency on any single source of information. If one part of the chain becomes unreliable, the structured plan can provide a stable reference point. This approach tends to be useful for people who prefer to understand the systems they use, or who operate in environments where resources and instructions are not always consistent. It also supports situations where repeatability matters more than speed, such as small-scale production, maintenance, or long-term use. By organizing instructions into a consistent format, the distance between the user and the final result becomes shorter. There is less reliance on interpretation, fewer assumptions, and a clearer path from materials to outcome. For those exploring this approach, there are structured guides that document complete build formats step by step. These guides are often shared as reference materials, providing a way to understand how the system works in practice. One such reference is commonly included in the video description for those who want to examine the format in more detail.